Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaekyung. I'm a professor and Fulbright Global Scholar, University of Buffalo, SUNY. It is my great pleasure and honor to give keynote presentation for Dongeui University International Conference. The title of my talk is When Socrates Meets ChatGPT, Reinventing Liberal Arts Education in AI Robot Age. What image do you have about Socrates? He is a great Greek philosopher, great thinker, known for Socratic teaching method. ChatGPT is a symbol of generative AI, smart, human-like assistant and tutor for us. The liberal arts education is a trademark of higher education curriculum for all students across different disciplines and majors to create critical and creative minds. And now it's under crisis, going through many reforms. So the question is, how can we create the synergy of Socrates and ChatGPT? In other words, high touch and high tech methods to help reinvent liberal arts education so that we create more critical and creative students in this AI robot age. So will AI outsmart humans? As this Time magazine story illustrates, people are worried that the humanities is already losing or giving up dominance because of AI and robot advances. There are some optimistic views about the future of humanity, and there are some pessimistic views about the future. But regardless of which view is correct or wrong, it is true that we need to prepare for this age through better education. So what matters in the AI robot age is not programming skills, but rather the skills to adapt to the new environment and to be more critical and creative thinkers to solve many complex problems in unfamiliar and unknown situations. In computer science, there is a Moore's law, which says that the number of transistors on computer chips doubles every 2 years. So in other words, that the speed of computing grows exponentially, which has been true so far. On the other hand, human understanding, scientific knowledge and discovery doesn't really follow the Moore's law. It's more cyclic, according to Kuhn's law of scientific revolution. And the next question is education losing the race with technology? According to a recent OECD report, the answer is yes, because only about 10% of the population may do better than AI. And the literacy and numeracy test, which OECD used to assess the people's skills. And even the best performing countries cannot produce enough well-skilled workforce with those literacy and numerical skills to outperform the AI. So under this situation, the focus of education needs to shift more towards teaching students to use AI systems to perform literacy and numeracy tasks more effectively, rather than just trying to compete with those technologies. And it's important to acknowledge the limitation of AI, like a ChatGPT. It can produce plausible sounding but incorrect responses. It can also generate the toxic or biased content. And sometimes they respond to harmful or inappropriate instructions. And finally, this AI model often fails to respond to incomplete inquiries by asking clarifying questions. So in other words, AI ChatGPT is very good at giving fast answers, but it's not good at asking the questions, which is why we need teachers to help students become more critical and creative, not just trying to find answers, but trying to understand why, how. Okay, so recently that there was a publication of Global AI Index. So what you see on the horizontal axis is the artificial intelligence power, and they rank the countries based on the technology, infrastructure, and capacity. And the US was ranked number 1, and then China ranked number 2, Singapore ranked number 3, and so on. And the Korea was in the top pack. And then the question that I had was how well these countries are doing in terms of human freedom. Because making just progress in AI without human freedom is not a good thing. And when I look at the relationship between this AI and the human freedom, the relationship was not linear. Because countries like Singapore and China, which are very good in terms of AI power, but not good in terms of human freedom. So the lesson is that AI doesn't always advance with the human freedom. And then I also try to look at the relationship between AI power and the people's problem-solving skills based on the international assessment, OECD PIAC. And what happened was that also not linear relationship. It was a curvilinear relationship. Because if you compare the Korea and the US is definitely much better than Korea in terms of AI power. But on the other hand, in terms of the human skills, Korea is better than the US. And then the Singapore is one of the countries that is strong in both AI power and the human skill. So we really need to think about what is the kind of right balance between this AI power and the human skills, because simply making the progress in AI without the human skills in human workforce is not an effective way to improve our lives. So AI doesn't automatically upgrade with human skills, and that's why we need to invest more in education in the right ways. So the AI is definitely getting better and better, thinking more like humans. But the question is, are we also thinking more like computers at the same time? So Apple CEO Tim Cook once said, I'm not worried about the artificial intelligence giving computers the ability to think like the humans. I'm more concerned about the people thinking like the computers without values or compassion, without concern for the consequences. So that's why we need an education that helps us infuse the technology with our values, which makes meaning and purpose for our life. And there's a cautionary tale of the King Midas and the golden touch. So be careful what you wish for. And the same, I think, is true with AI power. So this, the cartoon illustrates the danger of the AI. We programmed the AI to minimize the misery, and he figured the only way was to obliterate the humanity. So there are regulations on AI. So for example, EU took the risk-based approach to regulate generative AI, like a ChatGPT. So they have this transparency requirements, disclosing the content was generated by AI. And they're designing the model to prevent it from the generating illegal content and publishing summaries of the copyrighted data used for training, etc. And recently there was a Congress, testimony by OpenAI CEO about this issue. So what are the AI robot proof skills? In other words, what are the kinds of skill sets that the college and university need to teach students in order to outsmart AI? So these are some skills that students in my class generated. So that includes understanding human emotions, athletic skills, interpersonal skills, creativity and innovation, taking initiatives, and leadership. The question is, do colleges produce those skills, critical and creative minds? Right now, the answer is no. These are the two books that illustrate those issues. So what is the solution? As I mentioned at the beginning, Socrates is known for this pedagogical technique, Socratic methods. He argues that I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. So he is known for the asking his students questions. Basically, the purpose is to help students understand the deep understanding of the issues and also understanding of their assumptions, understanding of their underlying values. So sometimes it creates discomfort among students and even humiliation. But the purpose is to help students become more critical and creative thinkers. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we need a combination of a high touch and high tech approach to education. So I made this chart to compare Socratic approaches versus ChatGPT approach. The Socratic approach has these features, basically teaching by asking questions. And advantage is just become more open-minded, understand the problems, and compare the alternatives. And disadvantages students may feel humiliation, lower self-esteem, and may not work in a large class. In contrast, ChatGPT helps teaching by giving vast information. An advantage is it helps students brainstorm and discuss ideas, get feedback, and check for the accuracy and completeness of the final products. Disadvantage, because of the way that ChatGPT generates information, it may not be very authentic and it may not be so original. So unless students are given proper guidance, there's a high risk of the plagiarism and misusing the tools. So how can we use ChatGPT in education? So I'll give you a few examples. So here in this experiment, they asked ChatGPT to create an informative story for 10-year-old children. The story has to be informative and engaging. The story should be about the bees. It gave the template. So example, story about the ants. So here's a story. Small and strong, lift up a log, and a family of ants might be crawling there. Ants are small insects, but they are very strong. Ants have thick, strong legs that help them carry big loads, such as sticks and other insects. They can lift to 20 times their own body weight. So by giving this example, the ChatGPT learns how to format the story, but this time about the bees, not about the ants. So let's see what it created. So kind of similar format. Bees are small, flying insects that are known for their role in pollination and for producing honey. They are found on every continent in the world except Antarctica. And then it describes the bodies and so on. So kind of very successful, the outcome. But then they asked, the human experts to compare those two outcomes. So one generated by AI and another by humans. So GPT-1 here is the AI, and one named the PIRLS, Pulse, that's human generated. And as you can see that the ratings are pretty similar. Although human generated text did a little better job than the AI. But I think one thing that was interesting to me was that when we compare this story by human made, it was more appropriate for the 10-year-olds because the sentences are relatively short, and also the way that it generates a story is more engaging. But on the other hand, this ChatGPT generated one has a longer sentences, and it's a more dry and less engaging. So my point is that even though ChatGPT did a really good job, almost as good as a human generated text, but still it might be less engaging or maybe even less age appropriate. So I think that the one fundamental limitation of AI currently is that it doesn't fully understand the context. So the context matters. So in this case, the context is the 10-year-olds, and it has to be informative and also engaging. Okay, here's another example. This is a math test problem. So I gave this, the question, how can we multiply 2 by 5/12? So then this ChatGPT, actually this is a Microsoft Bing, which also use GPT technology. They gave this answer. To multiply 2 by 5/12, you can use the following formula, and then it generates the answer. So basically, it gives students formula and the results. But then the question is, does it also help students to think and understand the logic? It doesn't. So the reason is that the Khan Academy developed this Commingo in order to address that limitation. So they create a system also using the GPT technology, but this time they programmed the AI to use a Socratic method. In other words, asking students to explain their thinking as a way of nudging them to solve their own questions. So instead of giving the answer, ChatGPT says it is important that you learn how to do this yourself. What do you think you need to do? And then students say, okay, we need to do same denominator. But then if the answer was wrong, then it corrects the thinking. That's a good thought. But in this case, you don't need to find a common denominator because you are multiplying, not adding or subtracting. What else could you try? So instead of giving answers directly, it keeps asking students think about the problems and figure out their own answers. Okay, and the last example is the movie Oppenheimer. So I asked the Bing this question: was it a right decision for the U.S. to drop the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II? So it basically gave pretty, good, balanced, well-balanced answers. So some, the perspectives that it was justified to prevent, further, casualties and um, expansion of the war. But on the other hand, that the other perspective says that Japanese government was already on the verge of surrendering. So it may have not been totally necessary to bomb Japan, and with devastating consequences for human lives. So anyway, so the ChatGPT is very good at actually kind of balancing the answers without much biases in this case. However, I think that ChatGPT doesn't fully understand the context. So like what we saw in this movie, Oppenheimer, there are many, stories behind the scene to make that decision. So I think if the teacher use only ChatGPT, it might not help students think more deeply about these issues. But if the teachers actually introduce other materials like this movie or some real story behind this event, then students can better develop more human empathy and more deep understanding of the issues. So, I think the example is these two movies made by the Clint Eastwood. the same event, but totally different views. One view is American view, another view is Japanese view of the battle of the Iwo Jima in World War II. So I think that education, liberal arts education, can help students become more creative and critical thinkers by delving into these complex issues above and beyond what the ChatGPT or other AI tools can do. So the point is that the ChatGPT can be a complement, but cannot be a substitute for human education. So what to do for reinventing liberal arts education? So to wrap up the key points, so it is imperative to develop critical and creative minds to read the changes and solve problems. And US is leading AI power, but lags behind other countries like Finland and Singapore in digital problem solving skills. So that's why the education is still very important to fill this gap. And then conventional liberal arts education, including ones in the elite universities, fail to develop those minds. So we need to reinvent the liberal arts education through the synergy of this high-touch and high-tech methods. That means we need to create a more open, more safe, and supportive technology-rich environment where the faculty and students exchange ideas and asking questions freely, and then discuss the human values. And at the same time, schools need to provide students with the new guidelines for effective and ethical use of AI. And as I demonstrate in the examples, AI can be a great assistant, but teachers still need to validate the facts and check for the biases. And we need to avoid treating these tools as web search engines, but rather we better treat the chatbots like a human intern. So we need to be patient with their errors and train them to be more personalized assistant. So then we need to give them like a golden prompts, providing context to draw upon and the framework to apply. So these are the examples of the golden prompts that students and teachers can use, kind of train the chatbots to better understand the human context, to better understand the human values, and better understand the human approaches. Here are the references, and thank you. Your questions and comments are welcome by this email.